Hi, my name's Kelvin White and welcome to Ultimate Tropicals. Now the topic of this video is why do rare aroids command such high prices? Now my aim is to give you a very balanced view, both from a consumer and also from a seller's point of view. I've been a hobbyist and a collector for many years, and I've purchased through sites like Etsy, through eBay, and I've also made direct purchases from Indonesia. Now there is no doubt that the price of rare aroids is absolutely escalated over the last few years. Now it started before COVID, but of course COVID has massively contributed to this now. What we're finding is that more and more people now are staying at home. We're not able to go out to restaurants, we're not able to go on our foreign holidays, so we do have more disposable income than we would be used to. And of course some folk are now using that to enhance their tropical plant collection, and it's something that we can enjoy during the times that we're locked down and staying at home. Now the demand for aroids from the US, from Canada, and of course throughout Europe, there is a massive demand right now, and that's one of the reasons why of course the price is escalating. Now there are three main reasons why the price is as high as it is. One reason is down to us as consumers and this massive appetite that we have to obtain rare aroids. The second reason is that the growers now that supply these plants are well aware of the demand, and of course it comes down to supply and demand. And of course the third factor is the cost to people like me that actually bring the plants in, and what we have to do before we can make them available for resale. So they're the three things that sort of combine to make the price what it is. The vast majority of rare aroids come in from Indonesia. Despite the fact that they originate from South America, Colombia and Ecuador, there is nowhere near the supply of plants from that area as there is from Indonesia. The Indonesians are very fortunate that they share a similar climate, and of course a lot of them now are turning to plant growth to supply this high demand that they're now experiencing. What's happening out in Indonesia is the larger nurseries are simply running out of stock. They're really struggling now to provide mature plants, and what they're tending to do now is grow them from seed and grow the type of plants that are likely to be in demand. But the other thing are springing up because of the lack of tourism now, been completely cut off since COVID. What we find is there are little pockets of communal growers popping up, where it's literally a family and they will grow a bunch of plants in their back garden, and then some of them will supply the nurseries to help with the demand, and of course some of them will attempt to sell direct on sites like Etsy and through Facebook. As well as looking at why rare aroids cost what they do, let's also take a look at the options that you have or I have as consumers if we wish to buy plants. The first three options will all involve buying direct from Indonesia. Now I'm well aware you can buy them from South America, but we'll just keep it simple and stick to Indonesia in this example. Now if you choose to buy direct from Indonesia, normally speaking you are going to get the plants quite a bit cheaper than what you would be able to source them in the UK. Having said that, the nursery owners now, as I've already mentioned, the stocks are starting to deplete, so therefore they do tend to charge more for the plants that they still have available. And even with seedlings now, they know that they will fetch quite a high price in the US, Canadian and the European market. Now if you choose to buy direct from a nursery, I would strongly suggest that you do your homework. Check them out. They don't tend to go with reviews like we would do in this country, but if you search around, find some recommendations. Just bear in mind you are dealing with someone that is 7,000 miles away, and if you get this wrong, you could find that your money disappears. Now if you do choose to buy direct from a nursery, I would absolutely offer the advice to always buy through PayPal, goods and services, because if you do that and for some reason they run off, the plants don't arrive or whatever, at least you've got some redress to try and reclaim either some or all of your money. Now even buying through PayPal, there is still an element of risk, and that risk is not just about the person that's sending the plants to you, it's also to do with the shipping. Now, one thing we don't really have control over is the amount of time it will take to ship. Now, if you use a reputable company like DHL, They do ship extremely quickly, probably 3, maybe 4 days to the UK. The problem comes when they get to customs. And I've certainly had plants in customs for up to 8 days just sitting there. And of course, for every day that they sit there, that's a day longer, or even, that's a longer period of time they're going to take to acclimate before they look anything like the plant that we purchased. Generally speaking, if the plants arrive in poor shape, it's extremely unlikely you're going to have any comeback on the seller because they'll simply claim it was down to shipping. Now, the second option is to buy from a site like Etsy. And on Etsy, as well as finding UK sellers, you will actually find quite a few sellers directly from Indonesia. And once again, it's likely that the plant will be substantially cheaper than you would get if the plant was UK sourced. If you buy through a website like Etsy, much the same as PayPal, you are going to have a guarantee to some extent for the plants actually arriving. Again, it's not likely to cover the condition of the plants, only in the fact that you have a contract and they will have to supply you with the plants. Otherwise, you're likely to get your money back. Now, the third option could be the cheapest option, but it also is without doubt the most risky option. And that's to buy through someone that's selling their plants on Facebook, on one of the international Facebook groups. There are quite a lot of them. And this is generally where one of the locals, now that could be from a nursery and it could be one of the local communal growers. They're just trying their luck at selling them direct. And of course, absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. And to be honest, I do find the Indonesians a very honest people. And I personally have not had too many problems with them. But it has to be said that because of the price that the plants now command, you're always going to get those that are scammers and those that are just looking for a quick buck. So if you reply on a DM, WhatsApp, whatever it may be, and you make direct contact with one of these people that are selling, then you really do need to check them out. Try and get some recommendations off of someone that has purchased from them. Once again, I would strongly recommend that you go down the PayPal route, goods and services. Now, you might find that some of these guys don't want to go PayPal because it will cost them a bit of money, and they might ask you to go Western Union or something like that. My advice is just don't do it, because you have absolutely no comeback. And as I've already said, these guys are 7,000 miles away, and you can kiss goodbye to your money if something goes wrong. Okay, so that's the element of risk that we've got to manage. So really, those are the three options. Now, I have actually purchased off of someone that I made contact with on direct message. And again, they appear to be a very honest person. I did get my plants. They were in reasonable condition. The only little caveat to that was I did get fleeced at the dispatch from DHL because they wildly underestimated the cost of carriage. And then by the time the plants were packaged and turned up at the DHL drop-off point, I was faced with a $300 surcharge. Either that or I lose the plants. Bear in mind, I'd already paid for the plants. So again, were they genuinely caught out or not, or was it pre-planned? I honestly don't know. But it's just one of those risks that you've got to bear in mind. So it's always going to come down to the price you're paying for the plant and your exposure to the amount of risk involved. Now, many people do import without any problems at all. I think each shipment carries a risk no matter what you do. But as I say, a lot of people buy plants and they're absolutely fine. On the other hand, a lot of people buy plants and it turns out to be a complete disaster. So that's the choice that you have to make. It is an option. And those are the three different options if you choose to buy direct from Indonesia. Now, if you're not one to be taking too many risks, then the next option, of course, is to buy a plant sourced from here in the UK. Now, if you buy a UK plant, then of course we don't have all these issues with shipping, because generally speaking the plant is going to come either overnight or certainly within a couple of days. So we take a lot of that risk away. Now, if you buy on a site like eBay, or again it could be Etsy, obviously you've got UK sellers on Etsy as well. A bit like PayPal, you're going to have that money protection that the plants will actually arrive, and if they don't, then you're likely to be able to claim your money. So that takes that side of the risk out. It also alleviates a lot of the risk involved in shipping. What I would say with eBay, having purchased off of eBay many times, I've been fleeced a few times, and I've certainly bought a few pups in my time, is to look at the listing. And the first thing I would pay particular attention to, if you've not done this before, is to make sure that the image that you're looking at bears some resemblance to the plant you're likely to get. Because again and again, there's nothing to say that they shouldn't do this, and they will have a disclaimer at the bottom. But it's quite common practice to show you a really nice looking plant, but what you're buying is a seedling from that plant, and it bears no resemblance whatsoever. So that's just something to bear in mind. The other thing that you might want to look at is, and certainly you can ask the seller questions, if this plant has been imported, which there's a pretty good chance it would have been, how long has it actually been in the UK? Now, you know, one of the big issues within the industry at the moment, of course, is plant flipping. Plant flipping is when plants come in on import and literally within 2 or 3 days they're back out again for resale. Now, in my experience, a plant can look fantastic when it arrives, but you give it a week or even 2 or 3 weeks in some cases, and that plant can go from a stunning specimen to a yellow dried up stump, simply because it has to acclimate to the conditions it is now in here in the UK. You know, bearing in mind that before it was shipped from Indonesia, the roots were given one hell of a cleansing, all the soil comes off them. It is a very intense cleansing procedure before they can meet the phyto requirements. That plant is then put in a box for anywhere between 4, 5 or even 10 days. So the plants will experience a quite high level of stress. Now, if that plant is then shipped out again within a few days, placed in another box, you know, you've got to take your pot luck with it. Now, I'm not saying this is wrong, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying be aware of the fact that you may well be purchasing something really that is no better than if you'd saved money and bought it from Indonesia, because it hasn't acclimated. It's not really a UK plant, and it's simply come in and gone out straight away. So it's just something to be aware of. The other thing to look into as well, you know, what exactly is being sold here? Is it a fully established plant with a good strong root system, or is it a cutting? Now, once again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying cuttings at all, as long as you know that is what you're buying. If you're paying a lot of money for what you think is an established plant and it turns out to be a cutting with barely no roots, again, that is a big risk. And again, it all depends on how much you're paying for it in combination with the risk factor. So again, ask the seller questions, there's no problem. And a lot of them, to be fair, will actually state that it's a top cutting or a bottom cutting, but not all of them. So, you know, just be careful what you're actually purchasing. Now, the other option you have to buy plants in the UK is to buy from an independent website. Obviously, that's what I run, as do many others in the UK that run substantial rare plant shops. The difference with this type of purchase is that it's more than likely, if someone is selling via a website, that they will almost certainly need some sort of social media presence to go with that. Buying from an independent website with social media presence is probably the safest way to buy your plant. However, the drawback to that is you are likely to pay a premium price, especially if it's been acclimated correctly. So as I said, there are 3 elements here as to why rare aroids cost what they do. One is the fact that there is such a huge demand, and it's simply supply and demand. The second reason is that the people that grow these plants have now caught on quite quickly, and they know that they have something very valuable, and they also know that there is a high demand for them. So that again contributes to the price. Now, the third part to this is actually the seller's overheads and costs. Now, if someone like myself, for example, is going to ship in a plant from Indonesia, there is going to be costs involved. You know, it will add to the unit cost of that plant by the time it's been brought in and it's made available. So that's the third factor that contributes to the price. Okay, so now bear with me, because I have a few notes here, so I do need to read this, because otherwise I simply won't remember. So just to give you an example then, and this could be any seller, anybody that's purchasing plants from a wholesaler in Indonesia and they plan to ship them in the UK, we're all going to have roughly the same costs. They do vary a little bit for different reasons, but roughly speaking, it will give you a pretty good idea. So let's just say, for example, we're going to order 50 plants from the nursery. So as well as the unit cost, and this is the other thing, it can actually take some time to deal with these guys because of the very culture of Indonesians. They do love to barter. This is not a buy off the shelf situation, and it can take several days to actually come to a price or a unit price of particular plants. So let's say we've agreed the price. Now the price we pay as sellers will depend on how often do we deal with that particular nursery, what's the size of the order that we place with them, because obviously the more we buy from them, the more of a good customer we become, and therefore we're likely to get our hands on better plants at a better price. So it's very variable. It really depends on the relationship that you build with the person that's selling the plants. Okay, so we've picked our plants out now, and we've agreed a price for them. So here's where we have the add-ons now to get them into the UK and make them available for sale. So the first thing is a phyto. So the plants have got to go through this rigorous cleansing process, and of course the nursery owner's got to pay for the inspectors to come along and inspect the plants and issue the phytosanitary certificate. Now, we have to buy that. We have to sort of pay for that. Now, generally speaking, for an order of 50 plants, we're looking at probably about £40. The next thing is the shipping. Again, if you decide to buy direct, don't ever scrimp on shipping. DHL Express, in my opinion, is one of the quickest and safest ways to buy the plants. Going with a company that might save you £20 or £30, you've got to get these plants here as quickly as you possibly can. It's not about trying to shave costs on this particular part. This is about getting the plants in as quickly as possible. So for 50 plants, again, we're looking at about £250, ballpark figure, to be added. Now the next thing is when the plants arrive in the UK, they will then be subject to import duty and VAT. Now again, on an order of 50 plants, we're looking at about £150 now. So that's for import duty and also VAT. The plants also have to be inspected by Plant Health and Border Control. I can be very exact with this cost. It is actually £194. Now that's irrespective of the size of the box. That's what they're going to charge, £194 to inspect the plants. Then we've got PayPal exchange rates. I've already given you the reasons as to why I would always use PayPal to get that level of protection in case things do go wrong, but it comes at a cost. And again, for an order value of around $3,000, it's going to be about £120 for the exchange rates and for their fees for doing the transaction. So if we add all that up, that comes out at £754. Okay, so bearing in mind that's got to be now divided by the amount of plants that's coming in on the order. So we said we would use 50 plants as an example. So what we have to do now is divide the £754 in extra costs amongst the 50 plants, which comes out at about £15 a plant. So the price that we agreed, the unit price of the plant, now has another £15 added to that to actually get it across to us here in the UK. Now that's the cost of actually bringing them in, getting them here to the UK, okay? But what we have to bear in mind, and you all know this if you've been buying plants on a regular basis, it's not unusual for about 10% of the shipment. So if we're shipping 50 plants, about 5 of them are simply not going to make it. They're either going to lose their roots completely during transit, they're going to dry up, they're going to go yellow. Now some of them will recover, but in my experience, about 10% of any shipment is likely to be written off. So what we've got to do now is look at the unit price of the plant plus the extra £15, and for every plant that we lose, that is the figure that we write off. Okay, so that's times 5, an educated guess. Now about 30% of the plants in the shipment will take some time to acclimate and recover. Now that could be anywhere between 1 month, 2 months, or even 3 months. It might even be longer than that. But that's something else. As a seller, we've got to factor that in, that when these plants arrive, we might have to look after these things for several months before they're actually going to be ready for resale. Now that brings me back to the plant flipping issue, and you can see why people are so frustrated, because they're going to pay quite a lot of money for what they think is a premium plant, But the damn thing has only just come in from Indonesia, and it's gonna, there's always that chance that it's actually not going to make it, or it's going to deteriorate considerably. And in my opinion, that's why they need to be acclimated before they're allowed for resale. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with the fact that they come in and go out, but as long as you're aware that that's what's happened. Now, and the last factor in that as well, bearing in mind that as sellers, we are in business. It is a business that we're running here. And as much as we love plants and we love working with them, this is a commercial venture. And despite the cost of bringing them in and any losses we may incur, we do need to add a margin to them to make a profit. Otherwise, we simply have no business. All sellers are going to have a slightly different model in how long they keep the plants, what they do with them, and how they send them out. I can only talk about this part from a personal point of view because I don't actually know what other people do. And I'm going to give you a very quick insight into my business model and why I do what I do. So first of all, my plant shop only opened on the 21st of November. So literally it's been running, like at the time of recording this, just a few weeks. However, I'm not actually new to business. I've been in business for 20 years and I am actually the director of 3 different companies. Now, I'm in a very fortunate position at my time of life because my sons completely run those businesses for me now, and I have very little to do with them. That's why it's made this opportunity to turn my passion and hobby for rare aroids into a business. And I wouldn't be able to do that unless I've had someone else looking after my business interests. I'm 64 in just a few months' time. It's been an amazing business opportunity for me to do what I love to do, working with rare aroids, and also being able to bring them in and supply them out to other hobbyists and collectors that are also looking to source similar plants to the ones that I would like myself. So if I go back, the first lockdown back in March, it gave a lot of us, I guess, an opportunity to sit back and take stock of where we are. And as I said, at my time of life now, I've come to the conclusion that a change of direction would be really good for me. And that's why I did about 3 months of research, the business side of it, before I decided to launch, the Rare Plant Shop. The main focus for me to do this as a business was to be able to offer other hobbyists and collectors that would take all the risk away from the import procedure and making sure that I could deliver premium plants to those that were looking for them. Now, the first of those 3 elements, I've got a big business ethic that these plants should actually be in the UK for a minimum of 2 months. And as I've already said, the first month alone can be so dramatic in the way plants behave and recover. And I feel 2 months is a really good time, and it's long enough for the plant to establish, to acclimate, to put out its new roots. It also has to produce its first UK leaf. When a plant produces a new leaf, that's a really good sign that it's settled and it's on its way to recovery. The second element of this, so each plant gets photographed within a week of it going on the website. So the photograph is very, very up to date. Each plant has its own ID number. So anyone thinking of buying that plant knows exactly which plant they're going to get. If you noticed, I do put a ruler in the top of them as well, so you can actually gauge the size. So there should be no surprises with you. Now, that would be really important to me when I buy a plant, and I'm sort of hoping that it would be important to you as well. The third element is the packaging. Now, as I said, I've been buying plants for a long time, and I've had plants turn up in all sorts of mishmash of boxes and filled with newspaper, tissues, little poly nuggets, anything that happened to be lying around at the time. And again, just to be clear, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And I do say the majority of plants that I've received have actually been fine. They haven't suffered any damage in transit, certainly coming in from the UK. But one day I received a plant that came in from Holland. And it absolutely blew me away because it was in a bespoke plant box, and it made the whole occasion really special, in preference to just opening up some old box that had turned up. So I always thought that if ever I offered plants out, I would want them to go out in a bespoke box. I would want a nice insert, it has to have the plant passport, and I want this to be a special occasion. You guys are buying a very expensive plant, something to be treasured, and I just think that part of that experience is that it's going to show up looking the part. I mean, the feedback so far has been fantastic, and I was hoping that that would be the case. So those are the three elements that the ethics, if you like, that I would want in my business. Now, as you can imagine, it's okay having these ethics, but keeping a plant in here for a minimum of 2 months is very costly. Now, I'm recording this video now, first week of December, and I think it's like 6 degrees outside. In here, it's currently 24.9. I have to maintain that heat. I have to maintain the humidity. The lights are on 12 hours a day. The greenhouse is indoors, which it has to be, of course, and it's in a business unit. I have to pay the lease on the business unit and all the other overheads that may well go with that. So again, you know, this video is about why do rare aroids cost what they cost, and this is another massive factor that contributes towards. So very quickly to summarize, why do aroids command the price that they do, and what options do you have to purchase them? Well, number one, you can purchase from Indonesia and you can purchase from a nursery. The pros, that almost certainly they will work out cheaper. The cons is that it is risky. It's always going to be risky to import plants no matter what you do. You could buy direct from Indonesia via a site like Etsy. A lot of the sellers on there will sell you the plants direct. Once again, the pros, that it's likely to be cheaper than a UK sourced plant. The con is, once again, you're still going to have the same risk with the shipping. The third option is that you can buy from a Facebook seller through a direct message. Now, once again, you're likely to save money if the plant arrives. The massive con with this one, and this is by far the most risky of all, is that you actually don't know who you're dealing with. If you've been recommended with someone, fine. If not, be very, very careful, because they could disappear into the night without any prospect of getting your money back. So those are the three options for buying overseas. The options you've got in UK, buy off of a site like Etsy, buy off of a site like eBay, and as I've already said, be careful. The plants are going to cost you more because they're sourced from the UK. You don't have all the issues with shipping, but just read the description so you know what you're actually buying. The last one to cover is buying off of an independent website, whereas you're going to get all the social media that surrounds it. So that's going to give you the best chance of knowing what you're buying and the person you're buying from. The con for that is that that will probably be the most expensive plant because you're sort of buying into that reassurance. My hope was that this video would give you a really good oversight and a balanced view of why rare aroids cost what they do and the options you've got to purchase them. I guess it will all come down to three things: how much you actually want a specific plant, the level of risk that you're prepared to take to purchase that plant, or you buy a premium but you minimize the risk. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again real soon. Bye for now.